Today I'm here to do a video I'm very excited about, and that is sharing my top 10 underrated science fiction books. So these are books that I love, but not including any of the really buzzy, obvious science fiction books that you're expecting to see on these type of lists, because I know when I go and watch YouTube, there's certain books that show up on virtually everyone's list. And while I want to know other people's favorites, I also want to know about books that maybe I haven't read, or maybe even better, haven't heard of. And so I have several books today, 10 in fact, that are all under 3,000 ratings on Goodreads. A lot of them have a lot less, and hopefully are new to you. I do want to give a quick disclaimer that, of course, if you are a diehard fan of my channel, you might already recognize these books. These are all ones that I have read and reviewed previously on my channel, but it's a perfect excuse to talk about them again, tell you why I love them so much, and again, hopefully put something new on your radar or push it higher up your priority listing. All that being said, let's get started. Now, to begin this ranked video, I'm going to start at number 10 with 36 Streets by T.R. Napper, and this is a cyberpunk action thriller science fiction adventure where we follow an individual who is living in a version of Vietnam that is occupied by China. This individual was born in Vietnam but was raised in Australia and really considers himself to be an outsider in all locations. They're dealing with the underbelly of the society, and on top of that, there's also this game, this software that is a recreation of the US-Vietnam War that is getting very popular, and of course perhaps there's something else going on there. It is just an action-packed story with some great gritty characters. It's perfect for those of you like myself that really love the aesthetics of cyberpunk and are looking for something just easy to fly through. Again, it's one that is newer, and because it is more modern but perhaps not the buzziest book, or at least didn't get as much attention online when it first came out, I don't see a lot of other people besides me talking about it, and I really enjoy it. I've read it several times and always have fun with it. Then at number 9, let's go with an easy one, and of course if we're going to talk about underhyped science fiction, it is a great time to talk about indie science fiction, and of course one of my favorites is Refraction by Wick Welker, and this is one of his standalones. I should mention within this video I'm trying to focus on standalones. I do have an updated series video coming, so stay tuned for that. In this one it's set over multiple timelines, so there's one in the 1980s, another timeline at the end of the 2100s, and then a time period even later. So we have this scientist in the past, we have someone dealing with an authoritative government in the future, and then further into the future we have this Martian colony, and what connects all of these perspectives is that they're all hearing voices that appear somehow to be connected. And so it is a piece of science fiction that definitely is a love letter to hard science fiction, but at the same time it brings in those thriller elements, the question of perhaps bending time and space and all of those fun ramifications that just make for a really enjoyable, familiar and yet fresh epic science fiction story. I had such a good time with this one. It was my first book by this author, and again, if you want to look for underhyped science fiction, go to the indie authors. There are some fantastic authors like this one right today, one of my personal favorites. Obviously it's on this list and highly recommend. Then at number 8 we have Souls in the Great Machine by Sean McMillan, and this is one that is set in a future where our traditional technology has stopped working. We can't use electricity and power the same way that we used to, and instead we have replaced that by harnessing the souls or energy of individuals to power our society. On top of that, I do want to mention that this book involves some really amazing kick-butt librarians who are really the heroes of the story. I got in so much trouble last time I talked about this book and forgot to mention the fantastic librarians. Librarians in the comments definitely spoke up and said, what about the best part of this one? It's one that again feels fresh, but sometimes playing around with ideas that I've seen before, these dark stories. It's one about humanity and imagining this dark future, and I really like this one. I recognize it is part of a series, but at this point I've only read the first book and I feel like it reads really well as a standalone. So again, if you're looking for something under the radar, this one is fantastic, different. You will fly through it despite the length, and just highly recommend it. Next we have Electric Forest by Tanith Lee, and this is a sci-fantasy story that follows a woman who is born with a body that is disabled. She gets the opportunity to put her consciousness in the body of someone else. However, in doing so, she makes a trade agreeing to help with this political maneuvering, and the story becomes one of political intrigue and lies and sneaking around and all of the good things that I really love in my political fantasy and science fiction stories. So this is one that is very character driven, very slow paced. It is one that is building towards something and has a fantastic ending. I want to call this one underhyped, but I recognize that if you follow Whitney's channel with the secret sauce of storycraft, she is the one who told me to read this book and constantly talks about it on her channel. And so I have to give credit that this book is only underhyped if you don't already obsessively follow her as well. But again, between the two of us, I feel like we are the only two people on the internet yelling about this book. It has a fantastic ending. It was just as good as Whitney promised it would be, and definitely one that, again, needs to get more love online. I would love to see more of the older titles that aren't necessarily by the big giants of the science fiction industry getting more love online and getting that resurgence in popularity. Next up is Denial by John Raymond. This is one I talked about previously on my channel. It's a piece of climate fiction, which I recognize is not for everyone, but if we're going to talk about my personal favorites, I gotta sneak in an underhyped climate fiction gem that I really love, and I would argue is not as preachy as you might think it's gonna be. So in this one, it's set in a near future where we've had a decline of our world, largely due to climate change and various environmental factors. And so we're seeing the repercussions as the world is forced to change. We have changed how we evolve. We have changed how we interact with our world, transportation, and it really has been forced upon us to change our lives due to the significant changes in our world. And so we follow a journalist who is tracking down this individual who is largely to blame for what has happened to society. He got rich on a lot of the corporate evilness that brought down the society, and he is going to seek out this individual man who has gone to hiding. And when he meets him, what I love about this book is you expect this to be one thing, and the book becomes so much more complicated and nuanced, and the big baddies of this world become a lot more complicated. And I think it's just a really good book because, again, I think a lot of people tune out as soon as you say climate fiction, and as soon as you give a synopsis like that, they think they know exactly where it's going to go. And instead, this book really pushes back and forth, and I feel like tries to create a narrative that actually starts a conversation instead of shutting the door if you feel one way or another. Usually there is no room for conversation, and this book just in a very subtle, smart way opens that door a crack and lets that conversation happen. So if you're looking for a more morally gray, complicated vision of our future that plays around with environmental factors in a really nice, subtle way that doesn't feel so in your face, I really like this one. I love climate fiction, but again, I think a lot of you that don't normally touch the genre should give this one a try. Then breaking into the number 5 spot, we have Generation Ship by Michael Mammy, and this is a story that you probably could guess it involves a generational ship. What it particularly follows is individuals on the ship that are dealing with the repercussions. They are not the ones who signed up for this voyage, but instead are the descendants that are now living with the choices of those great-great-grandparents that sent them along on the way. So there is a lot of frustration because a lot of their life has been chosen for them. Things like how long they get to live for, whether or not they're having children and how many children, all of this is decided for them because, of course, in a closed system like this, everything has to be very closely planned. You can't have too many people, you can't have too few. And again, the choice of living a different life is taken away. So there is a lot of unrest that is established at the beginning of the story. And then again, there is more that is involved as they are progressing towards a planet that possibly can be the point where they can go and colonize. And as you imagine with a story like this, there is more going on. There is potential problems with that. And that is slowly revealed to the reader. This is one that is so engaging. I thought the characters were interesting and well-rounded and, again, complex, not entirely black or white, not stereotypes, but real people who felt very relatable. I thought it was a really good conversation around the complexities when it comes to dealing with generational ships, and it had a really good ending, a great build to a climax that was so satisfying, which is not something I can always say about my book. So when it actually works out to be a good ending, I just want to yell on the rooftop that someone finally stuck a landing because so many people missed the mark. Next is The Madness Season by C.S. Friedman. This is one that is set in a future where Earth has become occupied by this reptilian presence, and because they have been occupied for so long, we have really forgotten our roots of humanity. However, there is one man who is technically a vampire. This is all in the back of the book, not a spoiler, and what that means is that he has an extended life, so he has lived long enough to remember when humans were free before the occupation happened. And because of that, he becomes a threat to the occupation because he remains that piece of hope. And again, the memory of that is very dangerous to keeping humans at bay. So the story starts out with trying to deal with that and goes on from there. This is one I love. I'm a sucker for stories with space vampires, and again, it's not the cliche version you might be thinking of, but instead something a lot more complex and just unique how it plays out. It feels great again with some really well-developed characters at the center of the story. So satisfying. Another story with a really good build, the kind of ending that I love. Not everyone's gonna love it, but I think it fits the story very well and highly recommend. Again, I know that C.S. Friedman has more popular books, but I don't see enough people talking about this one. And in my mind, it's one of her best, and I'm so glad I finally read it. Then at number 3, we have Ymir by Rich Larson. This is a book I adore, and I don't see anyone talking about it. At the time of recording this one, I think it has less than 400 ratings on Goodreads. I do not understand how this book has flown under so many people's radars and how it does not get more attention online. This is one that is technically supposed to be a retelling of Beowulf. However, I always acknowledge this when I review the book that I have not read Beowulf. I vaguely know the story, but not in great detail, so I can't even say all of the nuances that are built into this one, but instead I'll say that this book completely stands on its own, even if you don't know those references. And so this is one where we follow an individual who's returning back to the ice-ridden planet of Ymir. They don't want to come back. However, there has been an incident in their family mines and they are forced to go and deal with it. They want to get in and get out. However, of course, with any story about someone reluctantly returning home, we know it's never that simple. There is always more to it. This is one that again has really rich characters. You can tell that that is really what makes a book stick out in my mind, of something that again is very special. And on top of that, I love the world building. I love the fact that this book is not set on Earth. Those in the story are not humans as we know them today, and instead you are set in another world, in another place, and everything just feels very otherly, very foreign. Often one of my main complaints with other books is that even though they're set in the far-flung future, you find out that all the characters feel incredibly similar to someone who would be living on Earth right now, and I feel like so often authors lack the imagination to really expand upon there, and this is a time and a place where again it just felt so different. It immediately caught my attention. I remember reading just the first couple pages, and as soon as I started reading, I thought, ooh, this book is special. This is going to be a new favorite. And not surprisingly, the rest of the book completely delivered. If you're looking for something fresh, if you are tired of the same old space adventures over and over again, especially the new releases that just feel like they're ticking off tropes and playing into whatever is popular with the marketers these days, this one felt so out of the box, and I really would love to see more people reading it because I think that this author deserves so much credit for doing something different, doing something fresh. Then at number 2, we have Womb City, which is a horror dystopian that I previously talked about on my channel and did a whole standalone review for, something I need to do more often. In this one, it's set in a future where certain individuals, if they are rich enough, they can pay to have their souls or consciousness moved into bodies so that when they get older, they just move into the body of someone younger. Because of this, there's actually a lot of pressure to have young people die, and so if someone is in prison, often they are pushed into situations where they are executed so that their body becomes available. And so there's very much a huge class divide of those who have the ability to prolong their bodies and prolong their lives specifically, and those that do not and are forced often to die off early. Within the story, we follow a woman who is struggling with her own infertility. You find out that she has struggled to get pregnant and is now playing around with using an artificial womb. And there's a lot of shame that is dealt around this. She doesn't have a lot of bodily autonomy because that is all controlled by her husband. So it kind of plays around with similar themes to something you'd see in The Handmaid's Tale, but at the same time, taking it into a more modern direction. And of course, as I mentioned, this is also a horror story, or at least has horror elements to it. In the second half of the story, the action just takes off and does not stop. So if you're looking for a really interesting exploration of a future, you get that in the first half. And if you're looking for a really fast action-packed adventure, you will get that in the second. I love both sections. They fit the story well and tell a really memorable tale. And again, completely pulled me in. I loved it. It had some really important things to say, and at the same time was an engrossing story that I could not put down. A real page turner for me. It seems to have controversial opinions online, but for me, again, it was a winner. Did everything I was looking for. I love dystopians, I love horror, and I can't wait to see what this author does next. And finally, at the number 1 spot, we have The Rig by Roger Levy. This is a book I feel like I'm always talking about online, and at the same time, I feel like no one is reading it, so clearly I'm doing something wrong. This is a story that completely captured my heart. It is a coming-of-age story of a young boy losing his innocence. It follows him forming a friendship that really opens up his world. You find out that he was very much protected from what was going on around him, and when that all is exposed, you find out there are great schemes and plans. It's one that involves so many different things. Honestly, I need to do a whole standalone review for this one. I need to reread it if I'm honest, because it's a book that is so fresh and unique because it blends together so many science fiction ideas in ways I haven't seen done before, or at least not pieced together, while still having a lot of emotional heart with, again, a protagonist that you will really immediately care about and worry for deeply. And I think it just does a great thing of bringing in some science fiction ideas while still not taking away that human component and blending the two so well together. Again, watch for my review once I get my thoughts together, but needless to say, if you're looking for an underhyped science fiction gem and you've gotten this far in the video and you have not read this one, if you have any similar taste to me, if you trust me at all with reviews, please go check this one out. It is such an emotional book. It is a fast-paced book. It's an important book. And it's just all of the things I look for in an entertaining science fiction book that still has some depth and complexity to it. I should say that this one has an incredible first chapter. And if you're not sure about this book, just look it up online. I'm sure you can get the sample chapter on an ebook service. And with that, you can check this out for yourself. If you are not hooked in by that first chapter, honestly, I don't know what's wrong with you, but it is incredible and will give you an idea of what's to come within this book if you're looking for a exciting story full of big ideas, big emotions, and will just make you feel things. Even if you're a black-hearted reader like me, highly recommend this one. I love it for a reason. I cannot stop gushing about it online. So that's it for this video here. I'd love to know of the 10 books I talked about, which ones are you planning on checking out for yourself? And of course, I would love for you to recommend me one of your favorite science fiction books that you consider to be underhyped or a bit of a hidden gem. So no, not Dune, not The Martian, not Ready Player One, or Dark Matter. Tell me something that you don't think I've heard of, or at least does not get enough attention outside of your particular circle of the internet. So love to see those comments down below. Hopefully I can do an updated version of this in the future, because again, I want to talk about the best of the best and also talk about the things that no one else is talking about. So thank you so much for those of you who stick around. If you want to, please subscribe to my channel. You can hit that notification button. You can hit that thumbs up if you think I deserved it, and drop a comment, even if it's just an emoji like a rocket ship, to let me know you're here. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.